Hey everybody. So I got into a conversation with hot off the Antarctic Express, CriticalThink. Yeah, we actually got into a debate on my last video. This one right here, it was spin, and this dead still, beautiful picture of this dead still water. That's not possible on their spinning ball Earth, and that's what I'm going to show you here. I'm also going to show you that, remember the Spherelinder? I actually in my community posts, I put out a poll too. I said, should we call it a cylinsphere or a Spherelinder? And I believe Spherelinder won. And so that's what I'm calling it here, a Spherelinder. It's a combination or a hybrid of a cylinder and a sphere. And I argued with two trolls, and I did a video on this, Wolfgang Lawn and JSS Tiger. Who knows who they are? They could be Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know, they could be Lawrence Krauss, these guys hiding and pretending and using their fake account because they know they'll get slaughtered by flat earthers if they debate them. So here we have CriticalThink. He didn't like that I guess I did this video saying that dead still water like this debunks their experiment because they need rotation to have a sun going around 360 at the South Pole. I know. The thing about there's another argument. Somebody came up with a dome experiment and a mirror and showing that you could see a 24-hour sun. And I said in one of my past videos, recent videos on this Antarctic trip, that if they had it, they'd have showed it. And why did we get doctored footage? So none of it makes sense. So anyway, regardless of that, the Earth would have never formed. We could never live on this spinning ball. It's all fake. We live on an immovable plane, period. With a dome, because we have gas pressure. You have to have containment. But, you know, that's another story. So this CriticalThink comes along, and he describes the sphere as a cylinder as well. But they're tricky. They try to do a hybrid. They try to combine the two. So that's what I'm going to show you here. So here's a quote from our little debate. I have the debate pinned. It's under another name. It's not under my name or his name, but it's about 20 comments long. I left it hanging at the end. I didn't comment on his last comments because he thinks he's got me, and it's just going to be a back and forth. So I thought, well, I'll do a video on it. So here he is thinking that I don't understand that he's incorrect. All right. So he says, think of a sphere, p-brane, as a cylinder of increasing radius, like this Spherelinder that I have here. I think you'll understand. Okay, think of a sphere as a cylinder of increasing radius, and I think you'll understand, p-brane. So here's my Spherelinder, and this is what he just said. Increasing radius. So it's a very thin, squat cylinder, one on top of another, starting at the pole and moving down, and it gets increasingly, the radius or the diameter gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's exactly, he's describing my Spherelinder to a T. Okay, each latitude line can be considered a very thin cylinder. Okay, that's from CriticalThink. Each latitude can be considered a very thin cylinder? Now, you see this picture? I have the little man, okay, this little yellow guy on the Spherelinder. That's what he's describing. See, on a cylinder, their little thing would work. With gravity located at the pole, everything could rotate around and stay put. So, just let me remind you, on a sphere, the ground wants to turn out from under you. And I'll just talk northern hemisphere. In the north, as the Earth turns east, you would have all this water and air. Everything would be moving with the ground. But the ground is making a left turn out from under the water. So the only place you traverse straight on this sphere, the only place that the ground traverses in a straight line, is the equator. Everywhere else on the sphere is a turn. So the ground is trying to turn to the left, which is east, right? Eastward. It's rotating around, but everything else wants to go straight. So when the ground rotates out from under your water, you have turbulence. And that's what you would have. Hundreds of miles per hour moving water would want to move in a straight line as per Newton's law. First law of motion. An object will tend to stay in motion at a constant speed and in a straight line unless there's something to act upon it to change that. Well, I'll go into that. Gravity, they'll say, but gravity acts as a tether to the center of mass, which would create essentially everything that goes in a straight line. This is Newton saying, which of course he co-opted reality on a flat earth, but their theory, so which matches our reality, that everything goes in a straight line. And so everything would essentially be traversing a great circle, which is, I'll go into it in the video. I'm going to show you a clip from the Wolfgang Lahn JSS Tiger so you can get a better understanding of this, and that you'll see that this CriticalThink is doing the exact same thing. This is how they have to do it. If you understand this, it destroys the ball. There is no spinning ball. It's not possible. Just like this guy throwing the red ball up, as I've shown, that's what it would do. And so they try to make you think, well, yeah, but the Earth has gravity at the middle. That changes it. It changes nothing. Actually, gravity aids, as we'll say in the video, objects going in a straight line because they rotate or orbit, in a sense. Any free-moving object, like water or air particles, clouds, everything, people on the Earth would be moving to the equator because we would all essentially be orbiting and we would be traversing a great circle. All great circles on a rotating sphere that's rotating eastward, right, like the Earth would be, will ascribe a line down to the equator, a straight line. That's a great circle. And they all crash at the equator. From north and south, you would never have still water. This is not possible. So here I have, you can see my little man, again, is traversing on a cylinder, a little yellow guy. And here I've superimposed a circle around it so you can see the sphere, the ground on the sphere is different than a cylinder, of course. But they have to describe a cylinder. It's the only way it works, with gravity located at the pole, equally distributed throughout the pole. Okay, so let me start the video. Again, let me remind you what CriticalThink said. Think of a sphere as a cylinder of increasing radius. And I think you'll understand, p-brane. Each latitude line can be considered a very thin cylinder. Let me repeat that from the beginning real quick. Think of a sphere as a cylinder of increasing radius. So that's your little cylinders being stacked on, and each one's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, starting at the pole, moving toward the equator, and then it'll go small again the other way, creating the Spherelinder. Each latitude line can be considered a very thin cylinder. Busted! They cannot describe a sphere because a sphere debunks rotation. It debunks this ball Earth that they've lied to us and told us we live on. It can't be, because the ground will separate from the water. The ground turns left. At the higher latitudes, it keeps turning sharper and sharper to the left. Yes, the water slows down as you go up toward the poles, but the turn gets sharper. And if you want to know for sure that the latitude lines are a turn, just look at my little, and this I showed CriticalThink in our little debate there, that watch the little red guys turning. Now, see the guy at about 80 degrees north latitude? He's making a turn, without question. But CriticalThink is arguing that you don't turn. You go in a straight line. That just because lines drawn on a piece of paper or on some kind of schoolroom globe appear to be straight, if you look at it from at the correct angle to see it as a straight line, from the side view, it's not a straight line. It's like drawing a circle on the floor. How do you have to traverse that circle? You walk in a circle. But if I tip the camera down where I'm equal with the floor, right, then you would say, oh, that circle is now a straight line. But you would have to traverse it on the outside like a cylinder, like I showed this guy, my little yellow man here. That's what he's described. It's the only thing they can do, because the sphere, an actual sphere, the geometry does not match a cylinder. The two are totally different, yet he's describing them as the same thing. Think of a sphere as a cylinder. No, you can't think of a sphere as a cylinder, Dumbo. of increasing radius, and I think you'll understand, p-brane. Okay, Bob the Science Guy. No, you're the one that doesn't understand. And then he says, each latitude line can be considered a very thin cylinder. No, it cannot. All right, so let me play this clip and let's see how it goes from here. This video is about showing how the ball earth shills that come to my channel defend their spinning water-covered sphere by describing a cylinder. Okay, so what I've said is, in order to see scenes like this, when the wind's not blowing, with perfectly still water, like glass, like a mirror, and remember, the Earth is still rotating, right? Hundreds of mile per hour water would have to turn. In the northern hemisphere, that would be turning to the left, right? Because remember, the ground is kind of rotating out from under the water. So for the water to turn, that would defy Newton's law of inertia, which is also his first law of motion. An object in motion will tend to stay in motion at a constant speed and in a straight line, unless there's some kind of force to change that. Now some would say, oh, gravity is that force that would change that, p-brane. No, it wouldn't. Gravity actually aids in things going straight. Let me explain. As you throw something across the room, throw a pen across the room, piece of paper, you'll see it goes in a straight line. If you draw a straight line between any 2 points on a sphere, that's the beginnings of a great circle. A great circle is the biggest circle you can draw on a ball, and it bisects the ball. And a great circle drawn on a sphere shares the same center. The center of mass of the sphere would be shared, that center would be shared by the great circle. So that's how Newton came up with his things going in a straight line. It's consistent with his gravity being located at the center of the Earth, which we know is just co-opting our still flat Earth, right? So essentially, as you throw that object across the room, it's like an orbit. Right? All orbits go straight. This is why they have their geostationary satellites above the equator, because the equator is not turning left or right. It goes straight, so they can get in sync with the rotation. Of course, it's all fake. They're not doing any such thing. But you can't have a geostationary satellite over a latitude and stay in sync with the latitude. It's not possible, because it will want to orbit the center of mass, and all latitude lines are a turn. Okay, everything would move at a right angle to the axis of rotation. And on a sphere, that takes everything to the equator. But it would work on the Spherelinder, where the latitude lines are traveling in a straight line, right? Doesn't work on a sphere, but on a Spherelinder or a cylinder, it does work. Like this, like my little yellow man here. That would be dirt, rock, water, clouds, air particles. Everything would want to go to the equator. And as per Newton's law, everything moves in a straight line. On a cylinder, it would work with gravity evenly distributed throughout the pole, because there'd be no conflict with Newton's first law of motion, where things want to stay in a straight line, right? Because water would have to stay in a straight line on a rotating cylinder. To stay in its latitude lane, it requires a straight motion. So it works perfectly. And that's the only way you could see scenes like this, is on a cylinder where water would stay in a straight line. On a sphere, though, straight moving water is death and goes to the equator, because to stay at latitude on a sphere and to see scenes like this, the water has to turn and stay perfectly in sync. And remember, the ground is rotating left. It's rotating out from under the free-flowing water, the hundreds of mile per hour moving water that's moving in a straight line. Okay, so this picture right here debunks the rotating Earth. Okay, so Charlie Goy said to me in a comment, "Hi there, brother p-brane. You present such an effective proof that totally invalidates a spinning globe Earth. Have you come across any serious rebuttal?" Yeah, right. I don't know if I'd call them serious. They've definitely been confused. There's some confused ballers out there. Perhaps that would be an idea for a video. Well, Thank you, Charlie Goy, and here's a video on just that. I picked a couple guys. They could be the same guy for all we know. They could be Neil deGrasse Tyson for all we know, right? JSS Tiger and Wolfgang Lawn. Okay, they describe a cylinder, and I'll prove that to you in their comments. Okay, here's JSS Tiger. He's quoting me. So I said, water's got to move to the equator. No, it doesn't. The water tends to go outward, parallel to the lines of latitude, perpendicular to the axis of rotation, p-brane. Here's another JSS Tiger. Water would have to turn. That's what I said. Insert laugh track. That was a good one, p-brane. So he's laughing at me saying that latitude lines are a turn. They don't even understand how their sphere works. Or with the latitude lines. He just sees this 2D picture and thinks, there you go, the latitude lines are at a right angle to the axis. No, they're not. Not the surface of the sphere. On a 2D drawing, sure, it looks like that, but you don't traverse the outside of it. If you did, that would be traversing a cylinder. Okay, maybe this makes it a little more clear. This is a blow-up of my the blue ball. And so I'm showing the turn of the latitude line right here. You can see that's clearly a turn. And if these people, that's if you're just standing still. That's the ground moving. But if you walk that, you also have to turn, right? Here is water moving on a straight line. This is the great circle course right here. Any straight line you draw on a sphere is a great circle. It bisects the ball, right? It's the largest circle you can draw on a sphere. Anyway, so that's at a right angle to the rotation. That's what they keep saying. But they think that this latitude line is a right angle. Well, it is in a way, but the surface is not. And it's the surface that we traverse, not a 2D drawing on a piece of paper or a drawing on a ball or a globe, right? So here's what they're saying. This guy right here, this is my cylinder, right? That's perpendicular. That ground is perpendicular to the axis of rotation. And if gravity was located right there at the pole, then yeah, that's the claim. They have to make this claim. It's the only way you can keep the ground in sync with what's above the ground. The free-moving stuff like water and air and clouds and everything that's loose on the earth would want to move to the equator. This ball is fictitious. It would have never happened. No life can live on this thing. It would have been over before it even started. As soon as the thing started to rotate, it would have been done. No life. Because everything we would look like this. Look at this guy at the top. If you walk around, you put a circle on the ground and walk around. Are you walking in a straight line? Let's say that's 80 degrees north latitude. No, he's walking in a circle. And it keeps walking in a circle the further down you go. It just gets where you're moving, you start to move faster and faster, but your curve gets smaller because it's becoming a bigger circumference curve. But the actuality, the reality is, this is the path everything takes, a straight line, which is a great circle, as per Newton's first law of motion, which is just a hijacking, of course, of our reality, a flat earth reality. Yeah, you throw something across the room, it goes in a straight line. Well, this is going in a straight line, too. And that's what everything would do. So this walking on the cylinder edge, that's not reality, but that's what they all claim. And that's what CriticalThink has claimed, as I showed you. And so, yeah, that's it with that. We're talking sphere. So you can see the surface of the cylinder is parallel to the pole, but not the surface of the sphere. Right? Only at the equator is the surface of the sphere parallel to the pole. As far as your question, why wasn't your tape measure parallel to the axis of rotation? Because my tape measure is on a sphere, Dumbo. The surface of the sphere is not parallel to the pole, except for the equator. On your cylinder, yes, that's what you're expecting in your mind. The cylinder, the surface, is always parallel to the pole. Here with my rubber ball, you can see clearly, I put this straight line against the ball right over the latitude lines. Now you can see it, JSS Dumbo. Latitude lines are a turn. All the water would be pushed straight, perpendicular to the axis of rotation, just like you said. And on a sphere, it goes in a great circle, and a great circle takes it to the equator. Okay, and now for the other winner I promised, Wolfgang Lahn. He says, on a ball without any attractive force of its own. Okay, he's not talking about the Earth, I guess, because he said, on a ball without any attractive force of its own. He must be talking about this, the guy who throws the red ball up, and the water all spins off and spins to the equator and spins off. Okay. So he says, on a ball without any attractive force of its own, rotation causes centrifugal force, right? Which is always pushing things away from the axis and at a right angle. Yes, thank you, Wolfgang. You just made the point that, yes, the water and everything gets thrown at a right angle to the rotation. And as per Newton's first law of motion, it's going to want to go in a straight line. Anything that's free moving, like thousands of feet high water, a foot high water. The water is not constrained under friction or surface tension. It's going to go in a straight line. So, yep, thank you for that. And we've already determined, I've already showed you that the latitude lines are a turn. So it's not going to throw it into a turn. It's going to throw it in a straight line. So thank you so much for that. You just disproved the spinning ball. Now these accounts, I haven't even seen them, so they've morphed into new accounts. Who knows who they are? But yeah, they're out there, still spewing the same garbage. Hence, water remains at the same latitude. Oh wait, did he just switch to the Earth? To the ball Earth? There is no force to push it to the equator. Okay, I think the force we should be looking for is the force that's going to cause water to turn around the pole. That's the force, because going to the equator, as I just showed already, it's a straight line, right? As I show on this ball, a tangent or a right angle to the axis of rotation on a sphere does not stay at latitude. It clearly shows here latitude line is a turn. From the side view, it may look like a straight line. It's kind of like looking at a racetrack from the, eye level. It could be a circular or an oval track, and it'll look like a straight line, but clearly it's not a straight line because the surface is what matters. The surface of the sphere, when you put the straight line on it, the straight line goes down to the equator. Okay, he says there's no force to push it to the equator. Well, Newton's law of inertia. Everything wants to go in a straight line unless there's some outside force to change that. So, Wolfgang Lahn and JSS Tiger, what is that force that would cause water to rotate around the pole? Around the axis of rotation, the pole. Do enlighten us. We want to know what force is there to make the water rotate around the pole. Okay, and the same question I pose to you, Mr. Critical Think. What force is there that would make water and air particles and clouds and everything else rotate around the pole? Centrifugal force throws everything straight, and Newton's law says everything's going to continue to go straight. Well, what's going to make it curve with the ground, to turn with the ground? Do enlighten us. And let me remind everybody of what you said, that you also are a cylinder Earth believer, or a Spherelinder. You said, think of a sphere as a cylinder of increasing radius, right? Go from the pole and you keep getting a bigger and bigger little cylinder, a squat little cylinder. And I think you'll understand, p-brane. No, I think you need to understand. Each latitude line can be considered a very thin cylinder. No, it cannot. That's the end of this. Busted. I hope you see this. Well, I'm gonna tell him in the comments that I put out a video. He'll find out. So that's it. The ball would have never even come into existence, because as soon as it started to spin, the first thing, all the water, everything else would have moved to the equator and stayed at the equator. Just like they say now, we have a 14-mile high equatorial bulge. Everything, the water, and that's beyond measurable weight and volume shifted up. The water's going to be on top of that, because they like to say, well, that's uphill. Did you know that, p-brane? It would have to climb uphill. No, the water, everything is much lighter. Everything would still be the air particles, clouds. You know that the air would move also in the same southeast direction? Or east-south direction? and would be in the form of wind at hundreds of miles per hour, colliding with other winds going faster. You would have some kind of crazy weather from that. Spinning air, constantly, and yeah, no, not happening. So that's it. I'm going to keep driving this point until people get it. It's a hard one to understand. Can be. But anyway, that's it for now. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.